Hey there, welcome back to High Infidelity, the best channel for cheating stories. Like and subscribe to channel for more spicy stories. Now, let's get into today's story video.
The day I caught my fiancé cheating 2 days before our wedding. So, I've recounted this story a few times on Reddit, but I felt this subreddit would be the best way to get it out of my system. For reference, I'm now 31 years old male. However, this occurred in 2014, when I was 26 and my ex-fiancé was 25, female, let's call her Barb. We met in college and dated for 3 years before being engaged, with a wedding date set by the 4th year. Our parents are not well off financially, and she was in graduate school, so the financial duty fell on me, which totaled $20,000 and was paid in full 4 days before the wedding. We had our standard mid-20s relationship troubles leading up to that horror of an evening, with periods of bad communication, excessive drinking on weekends, and the odd argument about minor nonsense. Aside from that, we had a terrific relationship and spent a lot of time together figuring out life after college and planned for the future. As I previously indicated, the wedding and reception venue processed my check 4 days before the wedding, despite the fact that the contract specified that it was non-refundable. Over 120 guests had been confirmed, including a few dozen from out-of-state tuxes, and bridesmaid gowns had been measured and paid for, and everything was coming together. Now, before I continue talking, let's get to the inevitable of events that you're all interested in. The night in question was a Friday evening at our new apartment, which we'd moved into a few weeks before, and we'd invited around a dozen people over to pre-game before hitting the town's pubs. My buddy, whom I've known since kindergarten, we'll call him Ricky, was among this bunch of buddies. Barb and I had spent a lot of time with Ricky over the past 3 years, and he was undoubtedly one of her favorite of my friends, which is always great when you're so gets along with individuals in your social circle. The night began at a local establishment that allowed buyout. So by the time we left, a 1/5 Jameson and a third rack of Ewingling had been consumed, and everyone was intoxicated. The next 3 hours were spent moving between 2-3 bars, resulting in the whole group devolving into a drunken, aggressive mess. Most everyone went home when the bars closed, save for me, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who returned to our flat for a nightcap. Once back at our residence, the pair barely stayed for about 20 minutes before calling it quits and heading home, leaving me with Barb and freaking Ricky. I spotted Barb checking her phone more than normal earlier in the night in the bar, and Ricky checking his phone after she had locked the screen. I nearly put 2 and 2 together. But why would I be concerned about them plotting anything nefarious 2 days before I was going to marry this girl? Back to my place, I was reasonably sober and observed that all of the liquor was gone, so I was thinking of picking up a couple of six-packs from a nearby establishment that remains up until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were clearly on the booze and had tanked, but there was no reason to assume anything shady would happen if I left for 20 minutes. When I was in my vehicle, about to leave my apartment complex, I had a horrible sensation in my stomach that something wasn't right, which really terrified me out. So I contacted my closest friend, and he agreed to be picked up and accompany me on the beer run and back to the flat. We strolled up to the sliding glass door that led to my living room, which featured a couch to the immediate right. After getting some Bud Heavies and coming home, we opened the door, took 2 steps inside, and my ex-fiancé was fully naked and mounted on Mr. Ricky, thrusting tonsil deep into each other's throats. The remarkable thing about the circumstance was that neither of them seemed to realize that my friend and I were just 10 feet away, observing their intoxicated antics. I lost it after 7-10 seconds of trying to absorb the present scenario. Dropped the liquor, shoved her backward off Ricky fully, and delivered 2 powerful right punches to Ricky's eye and cheek while he was still flat on his back with the most horrified expression on his face. To put things in perspective, I am 6', 220 pounds and have always played hockey. He is 5'6", 140 pounds and a runner. Ricky began snoring. I had never idea this was a thing, immediately after my fist attack, and was sleeping for at least 5 minutes while I was losing my mind over the issue. I phoned her parents around 10 times without thinking till they woke up and insisted they come take up their unfaithful daughter right now. Their home was just 5 minutes down the road, so they came in quickly after I was berating Barb for her heinous, nasty choice. Her parents rushed into me, yelling at Barb, while Ricky was snoozing on the sofa and my friend was mediating the issue. The first thing I told everyone was that the wedding was OFF. I wanted the ring back and said that I'd rather lose $20K than spend the rest of my life with a cheating. Her parents spent the next 20 minutes trying to talk me out of it and sometimes justifying Barb's conduct, asking things like, why can't you forgive her? And isn't it too late to cancel the wedding? Meanwhile, Ricky awoke with the right half of his face swelled to the size of a grapefruit and his left eye closed. It was difficult to get him out of the apartment since he was too intoxicated to drive. So I contacted his brother, who was 20 minutes away, and spent that time berating Barb, Ricky, and her parents. Surprisingly, despite my wrath, I was able to keep my cool long enough to communicate my feelings. When I've been this unhappy in the past, my brain felt jumbled, and I had difficulty condensing and forming my ideas into coherent phrases. No, not this time. I had meticulously taken apart each objection, opinion, or appeal for reconsideration uttered by everyone in the room by the time Ricky's brother picked him up and Barb's parents shuttled her home. It felt fantastic. I'm not going to pretend that the months that followed were simple and that everything worked out in my favor. 2 months later, the pharmaceutical firm where I worked decided to lay off my whole division. I had piled up thousands of dollars in credit card debt to pay for the wedding. Unemployment followed me for 5 months, and I was diagnosed with major depression. Life was messed up for a few years, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But now that I'm 31 years old, things have calmed down and I couldn't be happier. Thank you for allowing me to air my grievances. Story 2. Wife cheated on me with mutual friend 2 days ago. Spent whole weekend with said friend as if nothing had happened. FML. I'd been married to my wife for 10 years and now found out she slept with one of our friends who was coming to the cottage with us over the weekend. So I spent the whole weekend with this man, fishing, grilling chicken, cutting down trees, and so on, not realizing he had just had with my wife. I saw they were spending more time alone than normal, and my wife was avoiding me almost religiously, so I knew something was wrong, but I never dreamed she'd cheat on me. Now, I must admit that my wife has been suffering with a lot of worry and despair recently, which she has unfortunately dealt with by drinking a lot more than normal. In her defense, she was very vulnerable. We had been going through this together, but it was a difficult time. I knew the flirting had been going on for months, had told her to be cautious with him since he's a touch slimy in general, perpetual flirt, and could see she was enjoying the attention a little more than normal. In any event, she hadn't been feeling well all weekend. So when we got home from the cottage, I instructed her to go lay down while I finished unpacking and putting the kids to bed. She comes downstairs after they've been tucked away, weeping, and gives me the news. I later learned that it occurred when I left early to set up the cottage with the kids, which, by the way, we were locked out of, so we were really waiting for them to arrive to open, and that there was no alcohol involved. They had also kissed a few days previously, and my wife had given me pictures of her having a bath before that. The unfortunate aspect is that I adore my wife and want everything to work out. She said that things were simple with him since he suffers from anxiety and sadness and so knows how she feels. She seemed to sincerely regret it and claims it occurred in a fog. How am I going to get over this? She also doesn't want me to speak to him because she is afraid he may commit himself. I'm a cool, composed man who simply wants to talk. Is this a reasonable request? Is it possible for me to make things work? Should I do it? I'm not sure what to say right now. Update 1. Confronted her about 4 a.m. and requested that she unlock her phone so I could see her most recent texts. There was a lot of opposition at first, with her claiming she wouldn't do it since it was 4 a.m., she had to work, and so on. She eventually consented, but when she arrived home, she panicked and erased texts. There was still quite a bit of incriminating stuff in there from this evening, suggesting more than a random fling, and that this guy is smitten, wants to steal her away from me, etc. And also that he was actually saying that he wants to kill himself. She was reacting positively, ostensibly to keep him off the cliff, and she claims to me that it was terrible and that she can't imagine kissing or life with him, just me. She has now agreed to keep the phone open from now on, To sever communication completely, to be completely honest, and to the penalties of failing any of those conditions, I'm gone.